New research from Eurostat shows that Ireland is now the second most expensive country in the European Union. Denmark takes first place yet again, but the data from Eurostat shows that over the last number of years, prices in Ireland are becoming increasingly comparable to the European average, and of course now we're way above that average. Emma Howard, as the economist and lecturer at TU Dublin, what do you make of the Eurostat report? I mean, does it ring true to the lived experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unsurprising. So, we know we're expensive, prices have gone up, we've come through a cost of living crisis, and we're looking at overall price level now is about 38% higher than the European average. How expensive it feels depends, of course, on what you spend your money on. And if you look into those figures, you see differences across different categories of spending. So, for example, you mentioned cocktails, Pat, and we are 205% higher than the average EU levels for alcohol and cigarettes.
And that's down to tax, is it?
And that is a policy choice, right? So we have made the choice to make alcohol more expensive by, first of all, we have one of the highest taxes excise, but also the minimum unit pricing on alcohol has raised those prices. Now, what that has done is it's reduced the harm that's caused by alcohol in Ireland. We were one of the highest consumers of alcohol in Europe. Now we're, the latest data shows we're average drinkers. So, there are other issues that are feeding into it.
Now, when we read how high our energy costs are, I get annoyed about that because we have this ridiculous energy auction system which doesn't seem to me to deliver the best value for the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, we have, so the energy prices are about 17% higher here than the EU average. A lot of that is because we're still quite dependent on fossil fuels and gas, and we import a lot of our energy. So,
but it turns out no matter how much of wind we use, we still pay top dollar.
We do, and again, some of that is down to policy choices like the data centres that we have. So as we create more renewable energy, we're also increasing demand all the time. So we're sort of running to stand still when it comes to that. We have one of the lowest VAT rates on electricity in the EU, so it's 9%. Most of other countries are 20%. So there's different factors.
That means that their base cost is far lower than ours.
Yeah.
Now, what's going wrong there?
Yeah, again, there's different issues. We have a very dispersed population. We've got a lot of one-off rural housing, so there are a lot of structural issues that means that electricity generation is more expensive.
How do we compare on the rental front?
We're pretty high in rental costs. If you look at some of the comparable capital cities, we're similar. So, you're not going to find, if you move to London, you're not going to find cheaper rents. Again, that's all back to the supply issue, right? So we know that we're not building enough houses. We don't have enough units to rent, and that's feeding into that cost.
Do we have any information on how these prices are calculated? For example, if you were to go to Copenhagen, you'll pay top dollar. You'll pay maybe more. Shane Coleman was saying he was there recently, paid a lot more for food over there than he expected to pay, far more than he would in Dublin. But I suspect if you went to Friesland or somewhere like that in Denmark, you'd pay very little. You're
dead right. And these are average prices that we're looking at. So, if you look at the cost of rent or a meal out in a small town in Sligo versus in Dublin, you're going to have that differentiation as well. I think that one thing's really important to note is that, yes, we have the second highest prices in Europe, but we have the third highest average wages. So our prices are 38% higher. Our average wages are 55% higher than the EU average. So,
And what about our taxes?
Well, our taxes are actually, like, if you look across the European countries, we have a very progressive tax system. So what we have is really high levels of wage inequality in Ireland. But if you look at disposable income, we're about average on that equality across disposable income. And that's because we've got a lot of people on very low incomes who don't pay any tax. And as you earn more, you pay a lot more tax. Now, on the flip side, you could argue that we get a lot less for our tax in terms of public services than other countries. So, Denmark, where you have free healthcare and very subsidised childcare and so on.
It shouldn't be surprising to us that if there's a certain amount of disposable income floating around, that the providers will try to get as much of that as they possibly can.
Exactly. So as the prices go up, the wage demands go up and our wages get higher, and then people have the money to spend.
And if we have a recession, the price of a latte will drop to €2.
Here's hoping. Yeah, potentially.